Christians versus atheists. Every time I get on Facebook, well, more often than not, I have a lot of contacts with atheists and agnostics and every demographic of people within my friends list. And one of the main arguments from atheists and agnostics and anti-theists is that they hold that people should move past religion and basically put away religion forever so that human beings can finally progress into the future. That Christianity specifically has held us back for hundreds, perhaps thousands of years, and that the faster we put away these superstitions and stop teaching them to our children, which is dangerous, that we will be able to progress finally as a species and really get some good work done. Right? John Lennon's Imagine, right? All that. Furthermore, not only is it dangerous to teach these ideas to children, but it's tantamount to psychological abuse. In this video, I'm going to explore these questions, which are very valid questions actually. No Christian or any other believer should expect an unbeliever or a non-believer to see the value in belief, but in the course of this discussion, I'm going to explain to you why, number one, it's scientifically impossible to do away with religion, number two, why it's definitely unhealthy, and number three, I'm going to give you kind of a little thing at the end that might surprise you. Before we go any further, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications if you want to see other videos on this channel about apologetics, Bible study, also lifestyle, sports, longevity and health, science and tech, any other things that are relevant in topic. The first thing I want to talk about is using religion to control people. Many of the reasons that atheists have for hating the idea of religion so badly is because they see it as something that has been used to control the populace. And especially the Roman Church has been misusing Christianity for 1,000 years and has committed all kinds of atrocities and has held back the progress of science and these different things, and so I understand it's a valid concern. However, I postulate that religion is inherent in human genetics. You can't get rid of it because it's genetically inherent in humans, and we're going to explore some of that, and the reason why it's such an effective medium of control is because of its genetic inherency. All forms of manipulation and control on a public societal level basically pale in comparison to the big three. You have money. People will always be driven by money because we have a genetic need to stay alive, and money represents biosurvival. I've heard money called biosurvival tickets. The more money you have, the more security you have, the more assets for survival you're able to amass. Sex is always going to be used to control people in advertising and in every other facet because we are built and designed to chase sex. Number three is religion. More than money, more than sex, religion has been used to control people. Religion is biologically inherent, and I believe the reason why it's inherent biologically is to help satiate fear of death. We are sentient beings. We're aware that we exist, and therefore there's always this feeling of impending death, and the belief in a higher power gives us the impetus to continue to produce and to marry and to have offspring, etc., etc. Even in the face of impending death, if religion were not genetically inherent in the human being, then it would not be such an effective medium of control. Once again, many of these different religions and faiths are based upon a huge amount of self-effort, and they're not particularly happy things to believe. So if it weren't inherent in us to believe in such things, the gig would have been up a long, long time ago. In trying to prove the genetic inherence of spirituality and belief, is that a word, inherence? I first want to talk about C. Robert Cloninger. He is a brilliant psychologist who came up with many different things that we still use in psychology today. He's been cited dozens and dozens and dozens of times. He built the TCI, which is the Temperament and Character Inventory, which we still use to classify psychologically different states of mind to this day. In the early 90s, he and his team, in a search for spirituality, postulated that spirituality was heritable, and so they developed the idea of what they call self-transcendence, which was the predisposition of human beings to step outside of themselves and look at a bigger picture, to feel connected to a deity, or connected to their spirituality, or connected to the universe, and they called this self-transcendence. They studied thousands of individuals, including the classic twin study, where they talked to different sets of identical twins who had been reared apart, and they found that they had very, very similar belief systems, even though they'd never met, and they also shared about the same level of belief. Now enter Dean Hamer. Dean Hamer is one of the most brilliant geneticists that has ever lived. He actually was responsible for the first physical evidence of there being a gene for sexual orientation, for homosexuality, etc. So the entirety of the Born This Way movement really stems from that one person and his work. Now, in a 2004 book that he wrote called The God Gene, How Faith is Hardwired into Our Genes, he talks about his research in searching for the genetic expression that was responsible for C. Robert Cloninger's experiments in heritability with self-transcendence. In researching these individuals and their genes, he noticed that one thing kept popping up, and that was the VMAT2 gene, VMAT2. VMAT2 stands for vesicular monoamine transporter 2, and that gene, which transfers monoamines, dopamine, serotonin, melatonin, it's responsible for feelings of spirituality that predisposes humans to mystical experiences and a feeling of interconnectedness. Here is Dean Hamer's hypothesis and where the evidence points. Number 1, spirituality can be quantified by psychometric measurements. 2, the underlying tendency towards spirituality is partially heritable. 3. Part of this heritability can be attributed to the VMAT2 gene. 4. This gene acts by altering monoamine levels. And 5. Spirituality provides an advantage to the individual by providing an innate sense of optimism. Now, it should be noted that people who have a history of methamphetamine or cocaine abuse stop expressing the VMAT2 gene so much. It's probably attributed to the age-old stories about people who did so much ecstasy that they no longer had much serotonin to reuptake, perhaps. Nonetheless, these individuals have a tendency to stop believing. Regarding self-transcendence, C. Robert Cloninger suggests, just like transpersonal psychologists such as Viktor Frankl and Carl Jung, that self-transcendence or spirituality is beneficial to the individual and is an essential part of integration and maturing process of the individual. So far, we have evidence of heritability. We have found a gene that's responsible for its expression. We've found that it actually is beneficial to society and it shouldn't be removed. So, no, we can't just dispense with religion already. I've seen it said many times that people of belief, or Christians especially, are mentally ill. Well, since people who believe are happier than unbelievers, which is evidenced because there is a higher rate of suicide and depression among atheists, including studies by the World Health Organization, when you try to remove belief from somebody and you try to get them to see things logically and put aside those silly superstitions, you're actually doing them a grave disservice and you're actually contributing to legit mental illness. Trying to remove religion from society, because it's actually genetically inherent, is the same as trying to preach abstinence to young adults. Good luck with that. Humans are built for religion, and it's necessary for their happiness. Let's take it a little further. We're going to get into my world for just a moment. Bear with me. I just want to point out a few things. Now, because sex is such an effective medium for control, it must be genetically inherent. Well, we know that sex is genetically inherent. Because money is so effective at controlling people, it must be genetically inherent. We must be built to try to chase the things that will keep us alive, and of course, it turns out that we are. Because religion is possibly the greatest control mechanism of all time, and can cause an individual to put aside their money and their sex drive, religion must be genetically inherent, and it turns out we are built to believe. Now, Christianity is so far beyond every other religion as far as being effective at controlling people. I already said the Roman Church has used it for more than 1,000 years to basically control the entire world. Therefore, this quest for Yeshua, the Christ, would not be so effective at controlling the world and would not be the biggest religious tradition that is abused by people who want to control you if it were not genetically inherent. You were built to chase Yeshua, the Christ. If human beings weren't built to house the spirit of Yeshua, then that wouldn't be so easy to abuse and to take control of every facet of government, economy, education, every other facet in the first, second, and third worlds. When you go to atheistic countries that are filled with non-believers, where the suicide rates are sky high, by the way, any tiny seed of Christianity spreads like wildfire. Not like Islam, not like Hinduism. Those are massive religions. Buddhism, huge religion. They're not the same as Christianity. You give a tribal people a little bit of Yeshua, and the next thing you know, they're all converting to Yeshua. It's the one thing that most atheists would love to stamp out. And yet, Yeshua the Christ remains the most powerful, most popular, most age-twisting figure that has ever lived. So go ahead, like the video, dislike it, doesn't matter. Subscribe, hit the bell if you want to see more videos like this. Leave me a comment letting me know how you feel about this. I'm sure some of you are furious. That's fine, leave me a comment. I will moderate the comments to keep out the negativity, but I will not censor your worldview. Make 2023 the best year you've ever had, and be blessed.